At Mother's Day brunch, I showed up with flowers, her favorite perfume, and a letter I'd poured my heart into. But then I saw every single thing I'd brought, tossed into a trash bag by the garage like it meant nothing. So I left early and did this. By the next morning, her calls wouldn't stop coming. This year, I thought maybe, just maybe, it would be different. Not some magical reunion, not even comfortable, but gentler. I don't know why I believed that. Maybe because I'd been too busy to brace myself for disappointment. Or maybe because when I helped her with her taxes last month, she actually said thank you. And for once, it didn't sound like a courtesy. Or maybe it was because when I texted her last week to confirm brunch, she replied with a smiley, an old school one. A colon and parenthesis, not an emoji, not ironic, just familiar, like the way she used to text me before everything changed. So yeah, I let myself hope. I wanted to believe this time would be different. I bought her favorite perfume, the one she used to spritz on before work when I was a kid, and she'd kiss my forehead, leaving that scent behind like a promise. I picked out flowers, fresh ones from a local shop, not a pre-wrapped grocery bundle, and I spent hours, literal hours, writing a letter by hand. No greeting card filler, no Hallmark fluff, just me. I told her I knew things hadn't always been simple, that I saw how much she sacrificed, that even when it felt like she was far away, I never stopped loving her. It wasn't desperate. It was human. Honest. A piece of me trying to reconnect. I told myself maybe this brunch could be a reset. A fresh start. A way to look at each other again without old ghosts standing in the way. She had me when she was still practically a kid herself, barely out of high school. For years it was just the two of us, clumsy but close, surviving on takeout and laughter and the kind of bond that only single mothers and only children seem to understand. Then when I was 10, she met Jake, her now husband. He was polite, quiet, seemed harmless. I thought maybe it meant more stability, maybe even someone who'd care about her, and by extension, me. I didn't realize he'd be the start of my slow fade from her world. Then came Zach, my half-brother. And from that moment, it was like someone turned the volume down on me. I wasn't her son anymore. I was a leftover from a chapter she'd rather forget. Jake liked things tidy, emotionally and otherwise. He liked the image of a nuclear family, a do-over. I could feel it in the way he'd say "our boy" when talking about Zach, but never "my stepson" about me unless someone pressed. But even with all that, I still hoped. Because when you've been hungry for love long enough, even crumbs look like a feast. So that morning, when I pulled up to her house, holding the gifts, I actually felt proud, nervous, sure, but hopeful. Like maybe I was finally walking in as someone worth being proud of, someone worth having at the table. The house was dressed for the occasion. Tablecloths, champagne flutes, those little folded napkins that never quite stand up straight, the kind of setup she used to post on Facebook. When I walked in, she looked up and said, "Oh, you made it." And for half a second it hit different. Warm. Real. I handed her the flowers and the perfume. She glanced at the box like it was a grocery list she didn't remember writing. "Oh, you remembered this one," she said. Her voice wasn't cruel, just hollow. Not the reaction I'd rehearsed a dozen times in my head. "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. They only had one left. She nodded, already turning away to rearrange something on the table. Zach was in mid-story about dorm life, cracking jokes about his econ professor and rent control. Everyone laughed. I took my seat. There was a napkin folded neatly at my place, but no card like the others had. No mimosa poured for me. Fine. I reached for juice instead, trying to play it cool. Jake asked how work was, then looked away halfway through my answer. Mom was busy adjusting a vase. Zach passed me the salt without looking. None of it was new, but this time it hit different. Maybe because I'd actually tried this year. Maybe because that letter was still in my jacket pocket, burning a hole through the fabric while I debated when to hand it over. I'd even used the good pen, the one I never let anyone borrow. "Anyone want more coffee?" I asked, no response. Or maybe selective hearing. Halfway through brunch, Zach looked up from his plate and smirked. "So, do you do like Mother's Day charity visits now or what?" Jake chuckled. My mom didn't flinch, didn't scold him, just kept sipping her drink. I smiled like it didn't hurt. Nah, I said lightly. Just figured I'd bring a little something. Zach raised an eyebrow. Let me guess, Venmo again? Nope, I said, still calm. This year, it's actually in writing. I stood, pulled the red envelope from my jacket, and placed it by her plate. It looked wrong there. Too bright, too alive, like a wound against all that white linen. She blinked at it, lips parting slightly, as if unsure what to say. Zach snorted. You write her a love letter or something? Just a thank you, I said, voice even. No one spoke. Then Jake cleared his throat and asked someone to pass the butter. After brunch, I helped clear the dishes. Old habits die hard. I was halfway to the kitchen when I noticed the trash had already been taken out to the garage. Efficient, I thought. Typical mom. But something tugged at me. An itch of curiosity I couldn't explain. So I went out there. The garage door was half open, sunlight spilling in, catching on the stack of black garbage bags near the wall. And right there, leaning against one of them, I saw it, the perfume, still in its box. The flowers, crushed sideways, stems bent, and the envelope, my red envelope, sealed, untouched, perched on top of the bag like an accusation. Everything I'd brought. Everything I'd meant. Thrown away, I just stood there. The air felt thick. Not angry yet, just stunned. The kind of shock that makes sound slow down. I felt heat crawl up my neck, blur the edges of my vision, but no tears came. Just a quiet that felt heavier than shouting ever could. I crouched down and picked them up. All of it. The perfume, the flowers, the letter. My hands were shaking, but I couldn't leave them there. Maybe it was pride, maybe pain, maybe just instinct. But I wasn't going to let my love rot under old coffee filters and eggshells. I walked back to my car with the bag like it was evidence. Sat inside for a long time, the envelope sitting on the passenger seat. What a stupid thing to write, I whispered to myself. Thank you for the years you gave me. I know it wasn't easy, but you did your best. I'm proud of the woman you became. It sounded naive now. I stared at the envelope until the words on the outside blurred. Then I started the car and drove home. No goodbye. No confrontation. No message. Just quiet retreat. That night, I placed the letter on my kitchen counter next to the perfume and the wilting flowers. I stood there for a long time, staring at them, wondering what was wrong with me that I still cared. That I still wanted her to care back. I barely slept. But as dawn came up, one decision settled into place, and by the next morning, she was calling non-stop. I used to think things like this happened slowly, like erosion. You don't notice the loss until you look up one day and the shoreline's gone. But that's not true. It happens faster than you think. One decision, one man, one baby, and suddenly you're on the outside looking in. She met Jake when I was 10. He came over a few times, then one day he was just there. Every night. His car in the driveway, his toothbrush next to hers. My mom wearing lipstick again, smiling in a way she hadn't in years, and never at me. Then came the baby. I was still 10, old enough to know what it meant, but young enough to hope it wouldn't change everything. I was wrong. They built a new life at lightning speed, shared calendars, nursery paint samples, matching pajamas, and rules that no longer had my name on them. I told myself they were just busy, that when things calmed down, they'd notice me again. But years passed. Zach walked, talked, grew. They cheered every milestone. I brought home straight A's and got, "That's nice. Can you watch your brother for a bit?" She didn't stop loving me overnight. She just started loving someone else louder. By the time I left for college, the house didn't feel like mine. The walls were covered in photos, family trips, Christmas cards, birthdays. All of them smiling. None of them with me. I remember one canvas by the stairs that said, "Family is everything." I walked past it thinking, yeah, just not this one. Still, I kept trying. Holidays, birthdays, helping with bills, fixing things, pretending we were okay. I even helped Jake get a job, used my own contacts, vouched for him. He got hired, of course, took credit too. They never mentioned me, and I told myself it didn't matter, that I wasn't doing it for acknowledgement. But really, I just wanted to belong again. Even after I moved out, even after the years of distance, I still texted her. Hope you're doing okay. Sometimes she replied, sometimes she didn't. But when she did, when she said things like, "You always come through." Thank you. I lived off that for weeks. That's why this brunch broke me. Because I thought maybe, just maybe, things were turning around. She'd softened in small ways. No arguments. A smiley face in her text. A real thank you after the taxes. I thought maybe this was a sign. And that morning, standing on her porch with flowers, a letter, and the perfume she used to wear when she still called me sweetheart, I felt like her son again. Then she laughed at my brother's joke about me being half family and didn't say a word when Jake interrupted me mid-sentence and changed the subject to something about stock options, and she barely looked at the envelope when I handed it to her. The one I'd stayed up late writing, the one where I told her I loved her even when it hurt, even when it felt one-sided. Then she threw it away. I keep seeing it. The bag by the garage, the red envelope folded and bent, the perfume box unopened, the flowers half-see crushed under other trash. I pulled it all back out, not to give it again, not to make a point, just because I couldn't bear to leave it there, because those things weren't just gifts, they were mine. They were me, and if she didn't want them, then I was done giving. My mom sent a message that same evening. "You left in a weird mood. I hope it wasn't something we did." It almost made me laugh, but it didn't because nothing about it was funny. Not the years I spent shrinking myself to make space for the version of her life she liked better. Not the 1,000 little kindnesses I offered without thanks. Not the memory of her tucking me in at 7 and saying, "You're my whole world." Only to grow up and find out that world had borders I was never allowed to cross again. They didn't kick me out. They just made sure I always felt like I was visiting someone else's family. So yeah, I haven't called them back because for the first time, I'm not trying to be invited in. I'm trying to remember what it feels like to belong to myself. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of rage, not even heartbreak. It was something worse. Clarity. That dull, cold kind of clarity that settles in when you're done hoping. Like standing in a house you once thought you'd live in forever and finally realizing all the walls are hollow. Around 2 a.m., I walked into my kitchen and lined the 3 gifts up on the counter. The perfume, the flowers, the letter. They looked smaller now. Sadder. Like relics from a version of myself I didn't recognize anymore. I stared at the envelope for a long time. Creased from the trash bag, still sealed. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what it said. I opened my laptop first, the utilities. I logged into the accounts I'd been quietly paying. Gas, water, power, and scheduled final payments for the month. Then I removed my name from everything and closed the automatic drafts. Next, the tuition account. I had offered to help cover my brother's next semester. The transfer hadn't gone through yet. It was scheduled for the 15th. I canceled it. The confirmation email made it real. Then I opened a new email and addressed it Tommy Mom. Subject, Mother's Day, body. Just a heads up, I tucked an envelope of cash inside the letter I gave you. It was meant to go toward Zach's tuition. I figured you'd know what to do with it. Hope it didn't get lost. I hit send. Then I turned off my laptop, made tea I didn't drink, and sat in silence. Letting her sit with it felt better than yelling ever could. And sure enough, by 8 a.m., the text started coming. Wait, what do you mean cash? I didn't see any envelope inside. Are you serious? Oh my God, how much was in there? I'll look right now. Then the calls. Over and over. I watched the screen light up and go dark. Voicemail after voicemail piling up like little panic attacks. I didn't answer. I let her panic. Let her retrace every step in her head. Let her wonder how much she'd thrown away. Literally and figuratively. It wasn't true, of course, it wasn't. There was no cash. But she didn't know that, and now, every time she thought about that trash bag, she'd feel it. The possibility that she had discarded something valuable, not just a gift, not just money, something that might have saved them, and now it was gone. Around noon, Jake finally texted me. "You're being childish. This is a serious situation. Can you just tell us if you're lying?" I almost replied, "Ask the garbage truck." Instead, I put my phone on silent and kept going. There was one last step to take. I opened my contacts and found the names of 3 people I had personally introduced Jacato, people he now worked with, client leads, vendors, one old friend who helped him land a side contract. I sent each of them a version of the same message. "Hi, just wanted to reach out and ask moving forward. Please don't associate my name with Jake Hatcher. Nothing dramatic, just a personal boundary. Hope that makes sense. No gossip, no details. just enough for people to feel it, enough to make them wonder what had happened behind the scenes, enough to loosen a few threads. I knew how that world worked. Jake's entire job depended on being seen as a trustworthy guy with connections, and if I quietly stepped back, others would follow. By the end of the week, he'd already lost a long-standing referral. A contract went on pause. Another client requested to deal directly with someone else. I didn't even have to lift a finger. Just one email and a little space, and the machine started to unwind itself. That night, my phone buzzed again. "Did you find it? Please respond. I need to know. I think I saw the bag you're talking about, but everything's gone now. Please, can you just tell me if this is real?" I stared at her name on the screen for a second. I imagined answering, saying something cold, sharp, final, but that would give her closure. So I did nothing because this wasn't about revenge. This was about making them feel the weight I've been carrying since I was 10 years old when I stopped being her whole world and started being an inconvenience she couldn't wait to outgrow. This was about watching them scramble in the silence and realize finally what I've been trying to show for years. You can't keep erasing someone and expect them to stay loyal. I know I lied. I know the envelope never existed, but the pain, the withdrawal, the abandonment, that was real. And for the first time in my life, they couldn't ignore it. My mom left me a voicemail that night. Her voice was shaky, not crying yet, but you could hear the desperation leaking through her composure. "Please call me, please. I didn't know. I didn't see it. I would have never if I knew what was in there. Just call me, okay? I'm sorry if a please call." She didn't say I love you. She didn't say I'm sorry like she meant it. Just panic like someone realizing they'd lost something important and couldn't remember where they put it. I still didn't reply. The next morning, my aunt texted me. Apparently, my mom had called her crying, told her I was being cruel and withholding and difficult. My aunt's message was just one line. "If I were you, I wouldn't answer either." The tone actually made me smile because for aunt someone saw it, really saw it. How much I'd given, how little I'd received. How calmly I had accepted being nothing until it became unbearable. That weekend, I boxed up the gifts and tucked them in my closet. Not because I wanted to keep them, but because I wasn't ready to throw them away either. They weren't reminders of her anymore. They were reminders of me, of the version of myself who kept trying. And now I wasn't trying anymore. I was done. By Monday, she stopped asking if I was okay and started demanding answers. Her text went from, "I'm sorry you're upset," to, "You need to stop this now." Jake emailed me directly. Professional tone. Like we were negotiating a contract instead of untangling a decade of buried resentment. He said my decision to disengage was affecting his work, and that he hoped I'd reconsider for the sake of the family's stability. Translation: Your silence is costing me money. I didn't reply. Then Zach got involved. He sent a voice memo that started with, "Look, I know things were never perfect," and ended with, "But seriously, you're ruining Mom's life over what? Some trash?" That one nearly made me laugh. Some trash. Yeah, that was the whole problem, wasn't it? They'd spent years treating me like clutter. Something to box up and shove in the attic so it didn't ruin the aesthetic. Now I was gone, and suddenly they couldn't function. And still I said nothing. I didn't gloat, didn't rant on social media, didn't send one final "here's everything you did wrong" message. I just stopped playing the role and it drove them insane. By the end of the week, my mom showed up at my office. No warning, no call, just walked right in, looking like someone on a mission. The receptionist buzzed me like there was a fire. I came downstairs and found her standing in the lobby in a cream blazer and heels that clicked like punctuation marks. She didn't smile. "Can we talk?" she asked, already heading toward the front doors. We stepped outside. She didn't ask how I was, didn't offer an apology. She went straight to it. "You've humiliated this family," she snapped. "You've embarrassed your brother. Jake's job is hanging by a thread. Do you understand what that means?" "I understand exactly what that means," I said calmly. She stared at me, eyes hard. "You're doing this out of spite over one party?" I tilted my head. "Is that what you think?" She folded her arms. "We raised you. We paid for your clothes, your food, your school." I nodded slowly. "And I gave you a down payment on this house, covered your utility bills for 2 years. I offered to help with Zach's tuition. But sure, let's talk about the time you bought me sneakers in 5th grade. That cracked something." Her jaw clenched. "That was your choice. We never asked you to help." "No," I said, "you didn't ask. You just expected it. Expected me to pick up the slack when Jake forgot the mortgage was due. Expected me to understand when you skipped my birthday because Zach had a test. Expected me to stay quiet when you smiled while he called me half family like I was an accident. She opened her mouth. And you expected me to keep giving, I continued, even after you threw away the only thing I had left to offer. That landed. She blinked. Something flickered in her face. Maybe guilt. Maybe just discomfort. Then she tried one last play. You're punishing the wrong person, she said. You're punishing your brother. He didn't throw anything away. I smiled tight. Tired. You want to talk about the letter? She hesitated. I saw it, Mom, I said, in the trash bag next to the garage. I took it back. Her face changed. The sharpness dissolved into something smaller, weaker. I didn't know, she said. I thought maybe you'd taken it with you. I wasn't sure. You weren't sure, I repeated. I didn't mean to. You never do. I didn't yell. I didn't raise my voice. I just let her hear it. Really hear it. I'm not dropping the act just so you can feel better, I said. I'm not cleaning up the mess. And if Jake has to answer for how he got that job, that's not my problem anymore. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Like the quiet, dependable version of me had been murdered in his sleep and replaced with someone unrecognizable. Then she said it. You're not just punishing Jake, she hissed. You're punishing this family. I nodded. Then maybe this family should have stopped treating me like a stranger with a checkbook, and I walked back inside, didn't look back. 2 days later, Zach posted a vague, dramatic story about people who abandon their families when things get hard. A few mutuals liked it. One cousin messaged me privately. Is that about you? I replied, probably, and if it is, good. Jake, I heard, started hemorrhaging clients. People were reconsidering their partnerships. One of the vendors I'd introduced him to pulled their contract. He was asked to sign a month later. They called it restructuring. Everyone knew it wasn't. Zach's tuition didn't get paid. He had to defer. I never said a word about it. Not because I was trying to be cruel, but because silence was the only language they never learned to listen to. A few weeks after the office scene, I got a group call from my mom, Jake, and Zach. I didn't answer. They left a voicemail. We just want to talk, she said, syrupy and careful, like someone trying to reset a chessboard after flipping it. Zach mumbled, sorry. I guess Jake didn't speak. Then my mom added, you made your point. So what now? You disowning us? I played the message twice. Once to hear what they said, once to hear what they didn't. Noon said I'm sorry like they meant it. No one said we didn't treat you right. They just wanted me back in place, back in role. But I was done playing it, so I didn't respond. I blocked the number. 3 months later, I got promoted. Moved into a better apartment. Started hosting small dinners with people who actually wanted to hear what I had to say. Then one night, a message came in from my mom. Saw you moved. Hope you're doing well. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. She didn't mention what she did or what she didn't. She didn't ask how I was. She just wanted to see if the door was open. It wasn't. I made tea, sat on my balcony, and looked out at the city lights. No noise, no guilt, no performance, just quiet. And in that silence, for the first time in years, I finally felt free. Sometimes I wonder if I overreacted, if I should have just let it go, smiled through the sting, picked a nicer moment to set boundaries, chosen peace over silence. But then I remember that garage. I remember standing there, holding my unopened gifts, still damp from the trash bag. I remember the letter I'd written with shaking hands, trying to be vulnerable with someone who didn't think twice before discarding it. And I realized I didn't burn a bridge. Just stopped carrying the weight of one they tore down years ago. I'm not proud of the lie about the cash, but I'm not ashamed of it either. Because for once, they had to sit with uncertainty, with discomfort, with the possibility that what they threw away might have mattered more than they realized. So what do you think? Was I too harsh? Was it finally time someone said enough? Would you have done the same or walked away quieter? Let me know in the comments. I'm genuinely curious how people see it. And if you like stories like this, ones about family boundaries and quiet revenge, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.